Kids, today's video is going to be called Stirring the Pot. Other people call it stirring up shit, swatting at hornets' nests, just doing things to piss people off intentionally, or leading groups of people to get all riled up for no particular reason except for whatever their agenda is or to getting attention. Now, I am totally guilty of this. I love stirring the pot. I love swatting at hornets' nests. I've been doing it since I was 2.5. I got a black belt. Actually, I got multiple black belts in stirring up shit. So I am just as guilty or more guilty than anybody else in the universe, literally. Um, but I want to talk about this because today I've been pondering it all day. I had this incident this morning where I actually got up feeling good. Hey. And I started my day. I fed the one dog that hadn't already been fed because it doesn't eat unless I get up. Um, and I was sitting in front of the computer and I started doing my normal thing, which is I read the news, whatever interests me in the news. Now, depending on how I'm feeling, that can take hours or it can take a few minutes. It all depends on what's going on in my mind. But as long as I'm not distracted, which see other videos as to why that is, um, I can rip through articles very quickly when when my mind's quiet. So today I was reading, and it was one of those days that my mind was pretty quiet, so I was reading at a pretty good clip. And yesterday was just horrifying news. I mean, I just couldn't believe the things that were coming out of people's mouths. Now today, I read an article, and it was on Twitter, and it was about the paranormal. Now, most people that are interested in the paranormal don't make a living off of it. It's a hobby. There's very few people that have a big enough personality and resources, etc., to make a living out of the paranormal. It just is not something that's done wide scale, even small scale. It's just very few. It's a few people. It's a handful of people. A couple doctors at a couple universities and a couple ghost hunters on TV personalities, and they're mostly entertainment personalities, but some of them have more street cred than others. That being said, so I read this article. Now, I love the paranormal. I've been this is my 40th anniversary of dealing with the paranormal. I first got introduced when I was 9. So I have seen all kinds of things. I have learned all kinds of things. Whenever I thought something is just this or just this, it's all of this. It's, everything. Life is not black and white here or on the other side. It's just a big shade of gray. That's what I learned in life. Not just from the paranormal, but from life, like being a massage therapist too. Life is just one big shade of gray. All these labels and things we put on everybody, they don't really exist behind the scenes. People are much different than they appear at first. So that being said, I read this article, and this woman was just like on this jihad. You could tell that she had a particular point of view, and she was ready to shove it down everybody's throat, which is fine. I mean, I'm very opinionated. I'm an opinionated asshole, and sometimes very eloquent at it. Other times, not so much. So I was reading this article, and then after I read it, and I was kind of like, I could feel my panties getting in a twist. I have to admit, it was kind of like, ugh, why is she sowing all this aggravation into something that's supposed to be a pleasurable hobby for everyone? I mean, I've been to several paranormal events now, and when you go to a paranormal event, for example, as opposed to having a client, which I've had clients too, clients are a much different thing than going to an event. An event is for everybody, no matter if you've had 5 seconds of experience or like me, 40 years or more of experience. Um, it's for everyone. So everyone can learn, everyone can experience it. For example, I get a huge joy out of seeing brand new people have their first moment. I think that's great. I love it when they have their first moment. Um, it's really mind expanding. But back to the article. So this woman was just basically stirring the pot. She was stirring up shit in pretty much just a nice hobby that has no business having shit stirred up in. And then somebody addressed her in the remarks section of her own blog, and she came back just like this vicious, you know, alley cat, um, and just tore this person apart. And I thought, you know what? What a bitch. So, I'm very blunt. So I retweeted it and I made my feelings known in my little remarks section about just how disgusting I thought this article was and how unnecessary, which is my opinion. And I'm entitled to it just like she's entitled to hers. But then I got thinking, and as I was reading more articles on other subjects, I got to the LGBT news. Now, LGBT news is a certain kind of news that is designed specifically for LGBT people and their supposed interests. Now, you hear the LGBT community say, don't put us all in one box, we're not all the same, yet the press and the LGBT leadership does that exact thing. They put people in a box. And now they have this supposed agenda, which the right calls this agenda, but it actually is kind of true because it's if you disagree with anything the gay press says, oh my God, they come down on you like this vicious, you know, swarm of hornets, like you've just swung at a hornet's nest. And you could even be gay or trans or anything or a big old lesbian or whatever it is, and they will come pouncing on you. Like, how dare you say anything against, you know, what the official party line is. And they're as mean or meaner than the Tea Party. It's the Tea Party with glitter. That's exactly what it is. So I was reading some of these articles and they had this skew towards them that was just trying to stir up shit. For example, they were talking about, they had one like Republican jobs versus Democratic jobs or right versus left jobs, for example, blah, 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 blah. It's stupid. It was just there to stir up shit. And I read it and I thought, really? People, and then people were, you know, oh my God, blah, 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 online, just making all kinds of wild comments. And one of them was specifically an article about truck drivers and how truck drivers and taxi drivers skew differently. Taxi drivers are more Democratic and truck drivers are far more Republican. Now, I was a truck driver and I did not fit into their neat little box. And so I let them know in the article, sorry, but I don't fit into your neat little box. What's the point of all this? Because all truck drivers are not the same. It's not this uniform group of, you know, white trash rednecks that just watch Fox News and listen to Rush Limbaugh all day. They're not that. They're not those people. There are some like that, absolutely, but it's a wildly diverse group of people. And even those good old boys aren't always good old boys behind the scenes. They have their dalliances, shall we say. So, trust me, seen it. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. There's no reason to just stir people up. Then I was reading some more mainstream stuff, and you could tell whoever was writing it, if they were more right-leaning, more left-leaning, unless they really chose their words carefully, you could always tell, you know, where they were trying to lead the story or what group they were trying to stir up. And sometimes they try to stir up both groups, like let's say right and left, or straight and gay, or whatever, black and white. Um, they just stir up shit. And then I thought back, and I'm like, okay, let's look at history. And let's look at, let's say, Christianity. When Christianity first started, it didn't look anything like it does today. Because when Jesus was alive, he only had 3 messages, for example. They were, A, you can do this too. B, don't be afraid. And C, don't be an asshole. Those are the 3 things that Jesus taught. Don't be afraid, you can do this too, don't be an asshole. Now, from there, it's blossomed into this, 500,000 different types of churches, literally, globally, 500,000. Which means that when you went from the beginning of the church, people started stirring the pot and stirring up shit. And then causing discord, causing problems, which makes people fight, and then they split. Because it's all ego-driven, and it's all selfishness, essentially. Either it's mostly ego. People, I'm righter than you, or I know better than you, or whatever. So this church kept splitting, and then we had this huge Catholic church, and then of course Martin Luther split off from that. He stirred the pot and had enough of that, so he started the Protestant movement. And then the Protestants, they should all be Lutheran, right? Well, no, not so much. There's now thousands and thousands of different kinds of Protestants because everybody kept stirring the pot. And they're still doing it today. So this thing, like when you read in the news about Christian values and how the Founding Fathers all wanted Christian values, that's a right-wing talking point. Exactly which Christian values are we talking about? Because every Christian that I know that goes to church has a different church and a slightly different outlook. So I think if you actually got to the point of this right-wing utopia, you'd have a civil war break out over what Jesus said or what the Bible means. So, because they can't agree. And the fact that they think they can or try to make an illusion that they can is ridiculous. Otherwise, there wouldn't be 500,000 different types of churches for one religion around the globe. No kidding. So that's a huge example of historically stirring the pot. Now, I looked at some of my own personal experiences back in the day. And for example, when I was out learning world religions and experiencing them through both my work, by seeing them manifest through people's beliefs, because it can be seen and they can do that. So whatever it is you do believe, or even if you don't believe, that's going to be what your reality is. You're going to make it that reality. And if you truly do believe it, it will manifest for you. And good. That's great. But it's not going to manifest for me. It's going to manifest for you. Because that's your reality and that's your belief. But you can't make it my belief and you can't make it my reality at all. And if you don't really understand what you believe, you just think you do, but you never read it for yourself or really grasp it, I don't know where you fall. Usually you kind of just stumble around in this kind of mishmash that doesn't make much sense at the end. I've seen people do this and manifest it. It's quite strange. So as I'm going along in my life, I also, I studied in college world religions. I loved it. Then I went out on my own and went to different churches and synagogues and all that kind of stuff, and just try to experience and talk to people that experience faith in different ways or beliefs. And part of that was New Age stuff. And New Age is another 500,000 or more belief structures of all kinds of things, from people that are addicted to stones, colors, sounds, smells, different kinds of gods, feathers, whatever. I mean, it's just this huge bouquet of everything. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, some of it's kind of cool. Actually, my personal belief structure is a little bit of everything. I just kind of took a scoop out of everything, and that became my belief structure. And if you have to sit down and explain it, it would take days, probably years, maybe. Um, my belief structure is very complicated, but very simple. Actually, you can just boil it down to is, um, or I am. Just it. That's it. Um, but one thing I did have to, for certain things, you have to go through formal training, or supposedly you do. For example, there is a thing called Reiki. Now, Reiki is supposedly this secret society of people that go through this very elaborate training um, and study to become just a Reiki practitioner. Then you become a Reiki master if you want, and then you become a teaching master. And besides the first kind of Reiki, there's advanced Reiki, different kinds of Reiki. So they have, and Reiki is very simple. When you get past all the mystery, it's very simple. It is focusing universal energy in through a symbol, a physical symbol, um, that all these other Reiki people are doing. So it supposedly amps up the power of Reiki because everyone's doing the same thing the same way. So therefore, there's like this power in group or in mass. That's part of the thought. Um, and like I have my Reiki symbols tattooed on my arm. Each one that I've been attuned to, each one has its own tattoo. Okay. So, and I'm a teaching master, and I have learned two different kinds of Reiki. And it took me a couple of years to get all that teaching done, and several $1,000s. It was not cheap. If it's too cheap, there's something wrong, and if it's too expensive, you usually get taken to the cleaners. But that's everything in life. Now, with Reiki, it should be easy because once you know the symbols and stuff, it's just focusing attention, universal attention through a symbol for a specific item. In other words, like you have something that's just for knowledge, something that's just for breaking through walls, something that's, just for this, just for this, just for this. And sometimes you have to focus one at a time or together on multiple symbols in order to get somebody done in a session. They, do a quote Reiki healing or a balancing or whatever you want to call it. Now, Reiki grabs things from other New Age ideas like chakras and stuff like that. And so it gets more convoluted. Now, and then the process of becoming a Reiki person is this very detailed and terrific kind of thing that they do, this ritual. And I remember going through it many, many times. And it's okay, but it's magic words. And it's using universal energy through symbols. But you can do the same thing without symbols. You can. Sorry, you can do the same thing. Because I've tried it. So when I teach people Reiki, I teach it differently because I learned differently. I use symbols because it helps people. Same way when you do card reading, and as opposed to a cold reading on somebody, the cards take you out of the equation, so then they're not so resistant, or they're not so ready to blow it off or lie, flat out lie and say, this really has nothing to do with me, because they're freaked out. Cards take me, me personally, or anybody that does cards personally, out of the equation for the most part. Now, sometimes with tarot readers, not so much, but with other kinds of readers, yes. That's great. That's absolutely wonderful. But you have this group of people in all these different areas that are so militant about it has to be this way. You have to say this word. You have to do this action. You have to do this. And if you don't do it exactly this way, then you're wrong. And I've been attacked by several Reiki people for wearing my symbols on my skin because they're supposed to be secret. And I simply explained to them, that's what I was told to do. That was my calling. And frankly, it works for me. And it's more efficient than the way you do it. Your finger. I can get it done right there. Just lay it on there. No problem. So when they think about it, they're really pissed off, or they get this light that comes up. Stirring up shit. Why bother? Why take something beautiful like Reiki that's very simple, very positive, and turn it into something negative by fighting with each other? Now, if you get, 3, 5 Reiki masters in a room, you'll probably end up with 3 to 5 different opinions on Reiki. Same thing with massage therapists, for example. Massage therapists are supposed to be these wonderful healing touch people. And a lot of them are. Some of them are much better at it than others. And there's some massage therapists that are simply physical massage therapists. And they have absolutely no idea that they're touching the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual body all at the same time. They don't believe that. They're very mechanical. And when they touch you, you can feel the difference because they'll be thinking of stuff in their head, like their next appointment, a bill, picking up the kid, making sure they have milk at home, whatever's on their mind. And they just go through this motion of this routine. Now, there's nothing right or wrong about that, but if you get a large group of massage therapists in a group, which I have been in, and it's quite interesting, you talk to 5 massage therapists and you'll get 8 different responses about things. So, kind of like politics. And that's the deal. Stirring the pot just keeps splintering people and groups and everything more and more and more. And what purpose does it serve? Now, I can understand that you might disagree with me, but does it really make Christianity stronger to have 500,000 different churches than it just has 1, or 2, or 5, or 6, or 10? Does it make it better, worse? If you have a hobby, paranormal research, or just paranormal events, do you want to go in and feel combative, or do you just want to enjoy yourself for a day or an evening, depending on the event? Or do you want to go in and have to argue and debate and feel excluded and hostile and all this kind of stuff? Or feel, be put down or discounted or whatever. That doesn't sound like a fun hobby to me. And when you get a bunch of healers together and they can't decide on the best type of healing or what they believe, and then you put some other people that aren't healers in there that totally are skeptical and hate the idea, and then you have this huge battle, and what are they really doing? They're just sowing discontent where it doesn't need to be. That's the thing about stirring the pot. Look at your life and read articles carefully. Read them 2 or 3 times if you have to. And realize that sometimes they're just trying to get a reaction out of it. They're just stirring the pot. And the more you allow them to do that, the more apt you are to keep splintering away. And then you'll talk to a friend or 2 about it, and maybe somebody that's not quite close friend, and you might get one that disagrees with your viewpoint. But now that you got stirred up, you want to fight. And then soon enough, you unfriend them or whatever, and you just don't talk. So that's exactly what goes on with stirring the pot. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it made you think, and we'll talk about it later. Bye.